years now. I have worked in the partner channel, but I currently work within the partner enablement team. So I work very closely with our partners like Solutions, particularly around the Sage 200 suite. I'm going to take myself off camera 2 seconds. A little bit of agenda for today. Because I don't know what version you are all running, we thought it relevant to give you a look back on some of the versions and features that we've released in the past, but also give you a little bit of an insight into what Sage's current strategy is around Sage 200 moving forward, and what's coming down the line. So there'll be a little bit of PowerPoint, but it'll be more in the product, and showing you some of the stuff. So just a very brief content for you. We'll have a look at some of the previous roadmap releases, and what I mean by that is some of the releases that have come down the line in previous months and years. I'll also show you where you can have a look at specific releases from the one you're on, because again, I'm not going to go over releases going back forever. So it is important that, if you want to have a look at where you sit currently with your program and then look at what's come in the releases since then, I can show you how to do that, because again, there could well be features in there that you're missing out on that could be of great value. I'll go into a little product demonstration, so we'll give a little bit of an overview to the product itself, and touch on some of the Microsoft connected features that we have in there. And then, like I say, I'll go into a little bit on the future, and also give you a signpost to something called the Ideas Hub. For those that don't know, I'll keep my powder dry for now, and I'll come to that towards the end. But it's quite an interesting area of Sage where you can actually have a look at some content around wishes. So just to give you an idea, we have released over the last 12 months three variants of three product releases of Sage 200. We started in May 19 with the spring enhancements, then in August, and then more recently, March just gone, we released Sage 200 Cloud 2020 R1. Now, first thing to notice is the naming convention has changed slightly. So historically, we have always released, certainly since about the summer 2017, we've always released 3 versions per year. And we've called them more seasonal and year. So you can see Spring Enhancements 2019 came out in the spring of May last year. We've changed the naming strategy now to be more in line with the year that you're in, or that we are in, and the release in the calendar year. So we have released the first release of 2020, which we've called Release 1 or R1. Okay. There are previous releases, like I say, which I'm going to show you in a sec, as to where you can actually have a look at some of the features that were in that. Let me just close my email down 2 seconds, because I know that's probably going to pop up right on cue. Okay, so just to give you an idea, so we historically have always put our products into effectively 4 brackets. So there have been 4 main themes in the past, and they've been around payroll and payments. They've been around a connected ecosystem. We'll talk about that in a sec, around the crowd connected piece. We also have experience, which is a lot of it has come from the Ideas Hub. So it's usability. It's what features can we put in the program that make your life easier. And then the fourth one, and as importantly, is things like maintenance. So keeping up to date with defects as they're found, getting those fixed, getting those pushed out to you, but also make sure that we're keeping compatibility up with hardware and software, as obviously Microsoft release new versions, and obviously we release new cloud connected products as well. So if you look in spring 2019, again, apologies, I don't know what everyone is on, but like I say, spring 2019 was released last May, and we did a lot around the connected side of cloud connected. So when we talk about cloud connected with Sage 200 Professional, we specifically talk about cloud connected applications or features that actually connect in. You all know that it's not necessarily cloud at this point in time, but it's more of a cloud connected product. So what we have is capability to connect into Microsoft 365, and we have...
Johnny, sorry to interrupt. Are you expecting to be sharing your screen at the moment?
Yeah, I did share it. Is it not?
No, it's not come up, I'm afraid.
Did I have to get control off you? Has that come up?
There you go.
Sorry. Let's go back. So yeah, so there's the 3 releases. So not go too much into it. You can see we've got the years and we've got the how we label them. Like I say, that's changing to 2020 R1. This one is a little bit more relevant. Like I say, we've got our 4 pillars down the left hand side, specifically around the 4 main areas of how we go to market with the product. Historically, that's, like I say, that is changing slightly. But like I say, we're looking at the cloud connected strategy, and we've got a strategy with Microsoft where we have made connections into Microsoft Power BI, so reporting using Microsoft Power BI, which is part of the Microsoft 365 suite. And we also have connectors to a product that Microsoft called Power Automate, and also a product or a bit of software or an application called Power Apps. And that allows you to get more from the software and extend the desktop to allow you to get more functionality just from sitting in front of the full screen. We've done that by creating connectors to connect the Sage 200 product to what we call the Sage 200 API. So it's a way of pulling data in and looking at technology without necessarily being in front of Sage 200. Again, I'm going to demo this in due course and give you an idea what that is, because I appreciate a lot of you might be listening to me now going, I've never heard of that, even though I've potentially got Office 365 currently in my business. On the experience side, we opened up by looking at things like our wish list and areas of the product that customers are asking for, specifically from that Ideas Hub. So you'll see we've got things like the ability to close all accounting periods. So again, one of the wish list items is, why do I need to close sales ledger, purchase ledger, nominal, and cash book and stock? Why can't I just go all the way across and close all the month at one go? So we've done things like that. Restricting bank details, so that's the ability to hide the bank details tab within a supplier record. Again, feedback from customers is, if a colleague can get access to the supplier record tab, they can also see the bank tab, which is something that was asked for us to remove that ability, because customers may have colleagues that want to change bank, or you may not want to see the supplier bank details. The ability to reprint a remittance advice, so unless you go to the spooler, you can't reprint a remittance advice, because once that payment run's been done and you do another one, effectively those obviously those remittance advices have gone once that once that run's been done. That integrates in with the Office 365 technology, so storing documents in the cloud. And we had some import enhancements, so we have the ability to import into areas of the program where you can overwrite records now, where historically it's been a case of you can only import into an area of the product where there is only a new record. So like I say, we've amended that. A little bit on summer 2019. So again, this came out in August of last year. A lot of it was around the user experience, so things like user notification statuses. So if you're in an area of the product and a colleague can't get into the area that they're going into, instead of you trying to understand why that is and potentially walking around your offices or your areas of the business to work out who's doing what, or maybe they're even trapped in, you can actually get a box that will pop up which will tell you where the conflict is, and therefore you can go and resolve it. So quite a handy one that people have been asking for. The next one was something that was brought in after we removed it, and again, a big wish list item. So in historical versions, you used to be able to do a partial bank reconciliation. Like I say, that was removed, and again, feedback was we'd like to be able to part reconcile a transaction. How do we do that? So we've added that to the product. Like I say, that has to be in the summer 19. And alongside that, we've also included the unique reference number, or the unique identifier for an individual transaction to that bank rec screen, because again, you want to reference that to a particular audit trail or URN number. In previous releases prior to summer 19, like I say, that wasn't possible. And we've also allowed for other areas of the software to allow you to be able to do document attachments. So pre-spring 2019, you've always been able to attach documents to certain areas. We've increased that functionality to be able to attach into other areas of the product. We did at this point as well make compliant for the reverse charge legislation change that was coming in the construction industry, but of course from the point of doing that, that was then postponed. So that is ready for October this year, like I say, on summer 2019. And then in the March release was more around technology changes, around TLS changes that we had to make, around banking changes to support PSD2, and also some changes around our Sage ID refresh. Like I said, that affects customers on previous versions, and there are tasks that they must undertake depending on what they use within those three areas, and also the version that they're on. But like I say, there is a full Ask Sage article that Solutions can talk to you about if you've got any concerns or want to know a little bit more about that. So that's a little bit about what we've done. Like I say, because we've been releasing 3 versions for a number of months, a number of years now, certainly since the middle of 2017, we haven't done a big bang once a year release. We've been putting features in 3 times a year as they've come up. The likelihood is that the release cycle will be less than 3 once we start to get the new version out the door. Like I say, it's R1 at the minute, and we will wait. At this point in time, I don't have anything I can share with you from dates from this point onwards. But what I would draw your attention to, if I can just not let the cat out the bag 2 seconds with that. Some of you or all of you may not know about Sage or Ask Sage. If you just go in and type asksage.co.uk into any web browser, it takes you into our support and knowledge base area. So there are articles on here which will give you an idea of the new features introduced based on the version you're on. So if you're sitting and saying, Jonathan, that's great, you've talked to me about spring and summer, but actually we're down here somewhere, then you can just move through the various options and you can have a look at what's been released in that version, and then the next one, and so on. You get the idea. As you build up, you'll see all the features in there. So if you are on an old version, especially sort of 2013 or even below, there are an awful lot of new functionality that have gone in right the way up to where we are today, which obviously, as the products are rolled up, you would get benefit from. Okay, and the other one is, if you're not sure what version you're on, again, Solutions can help you, but there's also an article which will give you not only the dates that were released, but also the database versions and numbers. So it'll give you an idea of what these actually translate to as far as numbers go. So like I say, that's quite a handy couple of documents, but there
Johnny,
are quite a,
you could
yeah.
put the link to that in the chat for us. Just paste that into the chat on the webinar.
Yeah, I can do that.
People to be able to look it up.
It's a very good idea. There's that one, and I'll just jump to this one. The second one's like I say, a real interesting one, because it will give you some sort of idea as to what features you're possibly missing out on, and again, reasons to think about upgrading.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So just want to talk to you about the cloud connected element of Microsoft 365 and just sort of bring that to life a little bit. So when we talk about Microsoft 365, historically, a lot of customers will talk to you about, or will tell me things like, yeah, I use Microsoft 365 and I use Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Obviously, as time's moved on and technology's moved on, we start to talk about SharePoint, OneDrive, some of the cloud technology that Microsoft have released. And then we move on, and some of you may be using Planner. We're using things like Teams these days, especially in these tried times around COVID. A lot of customers, partners, and even ourselves at Sage, we're using Teams to communicate. So we're getting more savvy. But what a lot of people don't necessarily understand or have heard about is something called the Power Platform. Now, normally when I do these presentations face to face, I would normally ask for show of hands, but I won't necessarily do that. But just to give you an idea, the Power Platform consists of 3 products, and those products I've alluded to already, and they appear over on the right-hand side of the screen. They are Power Apps, Microsoft Flow, apologies, it's now Microsoft Power Automate, and Microsoft Power BI. They all work extremely well independently, but they're very, very powerful when integrated. You can use up to 230 cloud services, so it's not just about connecting using this technology to the Sage 200 product, but it's also about connecting to other connectors that Microsoft released, and there were well over 230 cloud services, data sources, databases, APIs that you can start to push in. So I'm going to show you some examples of pushing data in and out from Sage using some of this technology. You could also bring multiple databases together and actually start communicate with other applications, and that's where you can sort of build out the power. Power Apps, as it suggests, is an app that can be surfaced on through a browser or on a phone. Power Automate is more about automating flows. So when I do X, will you have the system automatically do Y? Send me an email. I'm going to show you an example of when we change some bank details in Sage 200. That will automatically notify a particular user that that's happened using a Power Automate, a bit of technology, and just connecting Sage 200 to Office 365 or Microsoft 365 as they now know it. And Power BI, for those that aren't using it, is a business intelligence tool, which again allows you to pull data in from your Sage 200 system using our Sage 200 API. But just to stress, you can also use multiple databases. So would you like to bring data out of Sage 200, but also potentially start to interrogate other platforms or other databases from different applications as well, and sort of bring them in and mix them together? It's called low code. So the ability of using things like Power Apps and Power Automate means that you don't necessarily have to be a developer in any way. Like I say, it's what they call point and click technology, so low code. So yes, there's a bit of knowledge around understanding how to use it, but like I say, you don't have to be a seasoned developer in your line of work. So and that's important, because sometimes people think because we use the API that you suddenly have to become a developer. It's not the case. Okay, so I'll come on, give you a quick demonstration of some of the features that are in the software at the moment. This is the typical Sage 200 desktop. So if anyone is on slightly earlier version than 2015, this might look slightly different to you. But like I say, we had a new user interface and refresh of the product way back in February 2015. Works the same way. So if anyone's on sort of like 2013 or 2011, it works the same way. You'll recognize the modules down the left-hand side. That's still the same. It's just like I say, we've had a refresh. We brought it more in line with our Sage 50 product as well. And then over the recent months and years, we've sort of started to introduce things like the dynamic homepage. So start to push data out to you as customers and users of the product of things that might be interesting. So things like what's coming next in Sage 200. So what I'm going to talk to you about, you can actually go and have a look yourself through things like this. I'm going to talk to you about Sage City, which is the Ideas Hub, but you can also have a look at some of the other important information that we would like to make you aware of. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into a supplier record. I'm sure you all recognize this, but I'm just going to change the bank details. Okay, so I am a user. I've gone in and I've changed the bank details. For you people on earlier versions who might have been on some of this before, seeing this, there is a feature that we did introduce called View Audit Log, which would allow me to go in and have a look at any changes to purchase requisitions or bank details that a designated user of my business has done. So you'll see here, we have just changed those details. We can, obviously look at a report for that. But one of the challenges, of course, is that it's not in real time. It's not a notification that says that's been done. The person who's responsible for viewing the audit log has to make that decision and have a look. So if I just bring up my 365 window again, this is Power Automate. So these are flows, and these are flows that Sage have created that are available off our Ask Sage on our website. So there are 3 that I have introduced. These are supplier approval, purchase requisitions of authorization, and supplier bank details. These can be set to run at a given time. So the supplier bank details actually pulls and runs every 15 minutes. But obviously what I'm going to do in this example is obviously just run that. So I'm going to override it and run it. But what you'll notice is if I look at my email account, it's actually popped an email address into me. Change will be made to the bank details for a supplier. So obviously that's how we've created, and that's the text that or the behavior we've asked it to do. But it's asked us to go and check our audit log. So if I didn't know that you would just change those bank details, I would have had this email pop in, and I could have gone down and obviously had a look now at my bank details audit log inside Sage 200, the one I've just shown you, I could check what's actually happened, make sure I'm comfortable that the bank details are correct. I'm okay with that. Everything's fine. The other thing you could have potentially done, if we talk about bank details, is if we look at our system administration window where our users and roles are created, we do have one which I have called No Bank. But if we look at the features on there and we look under our purchase ledger, under the advanced tab, we've added a new role, a new feature which is called bank details. So if I have this role attached to my username, I wouldn't have actually been able to go in and see that bank tab at all. Okay, so again, functionality there to actually monitor bank detail changes or possibly restrict the ability to do that altogether. I wanted to sort of put those two together for you to show you sort of where the bank details audit log function can also be built on using this alert trigger. Second one is more around supplier approval. So we're going to assume that we don't have access to change account statuses. But what I'm doing is I'm creating a new supplier. But again, in my business, I want a level of authorization or approval that says before we transact any business with that supplier, we must make sure that it's signed off that we're able to purchase from that particular account. So again, we run a supplier approval engine. This is currently running. We should get an email. There you go. So, that's the one I had before. There we go. So this one's slightly different. This allows me to write back to Sage 200. So not is it just saying, by the way, Jonathan, your bank details have changed. This is actually telling me that a new bank supplier account detail has been created. So first thing it does, it puts it on hold. So it means that I can't use that account at this point in time. Then obviously the relevant user, whoever that may be, will have got that, and they have two choices. They can approve and reject. If they reject, it will simply delete the account from Sage 200 as if it was never created in the first place. But we're going to approve it. Obviously, you can put some narrative in for audit trail purposes. We're going to submit that. And if we go back into our Sage 200 product, if I can get my mouse to work, and we have a look at the account, you notice I can edit it now. So it's been taken off hold. And if you look at the memo tab, you'll see that it's actually been added to there. Okay. So again, it just gives a little bit of narrative of what's happened and the fact that it's been approved by me. Okay. Like I say, there are a couple more examples which we have on our website. I tend to use those three, but like I say, that just gives you a little bit of an idea. The other one, if I just bring up, go back one of the screens. This is just a Power App, so I can get this refreshed. So again, this is an app which we have created, but it's just to show you. I have got this connected to my phone, so there are the two companies that I have in my Sage 200 system. I'm going in. This app's been created on my phone to look at sales information. So this is then just surfacing my customers. So again, this is going to give a list of the customers. If you use demo data, you'll recognize these. I can go in to have a look at the customer record from here. I can go into contacts at the bottom, have a look at the contacts for that particular account if I wish. Or I can actually go back and I can have a look at the transactions for that account as well. So again, we've created this as an example just to show you what the Power Apps can do. Again, if I scroll down, this will roll through all of the transactions. If I edit, if I go back to here, I can't create a new customer in this example. I can't amend this customer. So we've changed the name of that. When we look back into Sage 200, it will be writing back those details. So you'll see we now have Abbey Retail Limited 1. And like I say, this is the Power App technology. You would use a web page to create the app and the behavior that's going to do, but that was just an example of a one that we've created just as a demonstration, just to give you an idea. For those people that are a little bit more techie, and apologies if you are or you are, if you're not, we use the API. So Sage has an API which we are building out as part of our future strategy. But the idea is with Power Automate and with the Power Apps, you look at the API and you connect to the relevant fields in the API, which then connect to the Sage 200 database. Again, if you want more clarity on what that means, speak to your colleague, your contacts at Solutions, because, like I say, they know a lot more about that than me. I just present what I'm given as opposed to take any credit for being able to develop them. All right. Third option around Power Apps is Power BI, which I'm going to come back to, but I'm just going to launch it. So Power BI is a slightly different element to apps and to Power Automate. This is the ability to pull data through and actually report on the information that's coming out of Sage 200. Now, earlier on, I talked about the Power Platform. So you've seen there, I've used those two previous applications independently of themselves, and they've worked perfectly well and actually given me some real value. You can link that into Power BI, or you can bring them all in together. So an example might be that you may have a Power App. So that example I just gave you there is I might have been in front of you as my customer. I may have been asked by you to increase a credit limit. I may have asked or gone and changed that. That might have automatically sent a Power Automate flow to someone to say, oh, Jonathan's just change the credit limit of this customer. Is that acceptable? In a similar way you saw me with a supply approval. So when you create Power Automate, you can connect to a Power App to do it, or like I say, you can simply just start from scratch and just start to pull some data through from Sage 200. This is connected to Sage 200. Like I say, we'll just get rid of the panes down the right. But you can see, again, this is just an example report based on the demo data. I could hit the refresh option along the top, and I could refresh that data. This is just using the Power BI desktop. But you can see, obviously, I can start to slice and dice data. The idea is you would actually use this to actually create your own reports. Like I say, this is an example of a report we've created to sort of show you how it operates. But you can, like I say, pull multiple data sources together from different areas. So if you've got different databases, you can obviously start to pull this information through. My caveat to this would be if you are seeing the likes of Power BI, Power Automate, or Power Apps as something you're interested in, and you're seeing some value in it going forward, I must stress one thing to you. What we have done from a Sage point of view is we've created a connector. So we've developed a connector that connects the 200 product to the through the API, like say to the particular application. So we've joined the two together for you to be able to pull the data through. Obviously, the training of that is a Microsoft element because it's a Microsoft product. And the other thing as well is that when you use these three bits of technology, there are different options within them. So things like Power BI, there are different ways to publish and use some of the services that Power BI allows you to have. And in order to do that, it requires you looking at the right licensing. Okay, so that's a real important point. You do have to have certain licensing in place. So, additional cost potentially to what you already have, depending on what you want to do. Okay, and that's really important. We will join the two together, but make sure based on what you want to do that you consult Microsoft pricing and make sure that you understand what the licensing cost is going forward. Like I say, this was introduced in the February 2019. We called it Winter 18, but it was February 2019 that we released this in the product as far as the connectors are going. And like I say, as we build out the API, this sort of functionality will get an awful lot richer as it goes. But hopefully you can see what I've done there with things like the supplier approval, that it's it's adding real value to customers because it's starting to automate things within Microsoft 365, which I already have. Like I say, with that caveat of there's an element of price. I'll just snip into Sage 200 2 seconds and just show you a couple of things before we look at the future. I didn't want to just labour, just go through feature, because they sort of speak for themselves. But again, a little tip for you: if this is free, if you're not using favorites, it's an ideal way of subdividing your menu out. So if you are or you're not using it, and you do certain things regularly in the same way you might have browsing, sort of technical, the way you browse your internet, then it's a great way of subdividing. I like doing it because I like to subdivide. If I'm doing a demo, I'm showing something specific, I like to sort of just make it nice and simple for me to navigate. Navigation's really important. So I'm just putting a purchase invoice on, and I just want to show you that what you'll see at the bottom of the screen, we have a Sage and attach option. So if we go into there, we have the ability to scan if we had a device attached, or we could simply attach a document. So I'm attaching a document. And again, if we refer to some of the feature documents earlier, that will give you an idea of what areas of the software you can do that in. Because like I say, we started off and now we've moved into places like journals and so on. So even things like VAT returns, where you can attach. But if we look at a specific account, just bring that one up. Don't think I saved that one quite well, but you'll see a one I did last week. It's the same principle. If I go into here and go into the details tab, I can have a look at the trader tab and I can see. Okay, so again, I could attach it here if I'd forgot, or I could also look at it from things like the supplier activity. So if I'd gone at the supplier account and looked at the activity or the transaction inquiry of that particular supplier, again, I could have seen that in there as well. A couple of things around bank rec. So if we bring the bank rec screen up, first thing you'll notice is we've got a URN column, which I mentioned earlier on. And you also notice we've now got a status column, which is part. So this top line is actually for 158.33 gross value. But if I click on the little button at the top left, or the little tick, you'll see that it's actually got that left. So obviously I've part reconciled that. So if I just do another £10, match those selected items, just reconcile, confirm that the balance is okay. We understand why that's come up. We go back to number one, tick the box, you see it's gone down. So that's the changes I mentioned that we put back in from a point of view of part reconciling the transactions. So the ability to part reconcile, but also have the URN column on there as well. Okay, I'll just move on. I'm conscious that I'm not going to just show you features I've shown you. Just a couple of features, and like I say, the Microsoft 365 functions. Like I say, I would stress, have another look at that particular document. Again, I'll go back to it and signpost it for you at the end, just so you know, because like I say, I'm sure some of you may well be on earlier versions, and sometimes it's it's not recognized as actually what has changed. We've done quite a lot. So a little bit about the future. So like I say, previously the strategy's been about those four elements around payroll, connected, usability, and defect and maintenance. But we are changing the strategy of where we take Sage 200 moving forward. Okay, so this is in development at the minute. I can't share any dates with you for the simple fact is I don't have any at the minute. All I know is we're developing the product as we speak, and we're changing what that will look like. So instead of leaving it as the desktop, we're actually focusing on three key elements, and it's all about delivering the right solution for you, our customers, and obviously new customers as well. So the most important part is we're going to web enable the Sage 200 product. So what that effectively means is we will be putting all the forms in a web browser, making them web enabled. So there will be cloud-based forms, and we will also therefore have a couple of deployment methods as far as the data is concerned. You could use Microsoft Azure and we would host and put the data in the cloud for you as part of that. You could use a different data deployment of your own, or you could leave it on premise. And on premise means you've got your server in the corner of the room that holds your data. Again, depending on the type of customer you are and how you've currently got it set up, we can align to that. But the important thing is that we're going to make the product web enabled so that we can actually make the data more or cloud-based, as opposed to install on a client machine, click on it and see the forms that you've just seen in the product. That offers great choice because it also allows you more accessibility standards. So we can start to support multi-browser. We can start to look at different size of fonts and scale. We can also look at different technology choices. So, you know, not just about running it on a Windows device, on a laptop or on a desktop. It's about looking at on multiple devices like tablets, because obviously it's going to be a web-enabled function. So that's point one, and that's something that is really exciting. That's, like I say, that's in development at the minute. So, you know, sometime in the future we will get notification. From a point of view of how we will notify customers, we will obviously use our partner channel like Solutions, and we'll make you aware when the time's right. We'll make sure you're up to date with what will, you know, what's coming. The second one is strengthening the core accounting and API. So again, don't want to be too technical, but the API is development, and it's the way that we connect. It's the way that you saw Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Apps connect, but it's also what we're doing in order to connect to our web-enabled functions as well. So we will be building that API out. So if any of you are developers or understand that sort of technology, we will start to make the API a lot more attractive, because we will be opening that out and making it more feature rich, if you like, or accessible. All right, and then the third one is the vertical specific proposition. So we will look at any verticals that we need to look at, and potentially look at feature sets for our customers based on certain industry requirements that we feel relevant to the product. Okay, but the main takeaway is, you know, web enabling the Sage 200 product, making the Microsoft 365 functions I've talked about more powerful because of the API, but also meaning that you can actually start to use Sage 200 in a web-enabled form. I don't have access to obviously the system as such, but what I have asked is colleagues in R&D just to give me a couple of screenshots, just to give you an idea of you know, what the screens potentially would look like. So, you know, sorry that I've made that quite large on the screen, but that's the current managed stock take window that you have in your current Sage 200 product. Very much like I say, forms. The next screen is effectively what it looks like in the web world. So that's what it will look like in the web world. That's what currently looks like from a point of view of what it would see. The next one is the customer transaction inquiry screen. Apologies, the data sets they haven't come from the same data, because obviously one's mine and one's obviously R&D's that they're working on, but you know you get the concept. So this is the current, again, the Sage 200 window that I'm sure that many of you, if not all of you, use currently or have used. Again, typical list views, using things like the transaction detail drill down the left to move through things like the allocation, the memos, the nominals, etc. Again, in the web world, I've just took the bottom off the screen just to make it bigger for you, but they're just the radio buttons. But you'll see that actually what we've got down is the drill down in the bottom sort of section here. So again, very similar window as far as what it displays or what it's going to display, but just set up differently. So we've got drill down here instead of a drop down. But again, relevant screens that you would see as you move through. Next one is amend customer. So again, a customer record with various tabs. You go into the various tabs, obviously you amend the relevant information when it's changed. And again, in the web world, very similar concept, element of the customer along the top, but again, the tabular effect, or the drill here across the middle as I move along. So they're the screens that I have at the moment, but you can sort of see where we're going. The screens in the current desktop product have all been changed and rewritten to look very much like what you're looking at now. So certainly personally, from someone who's been with the product quite a lot of years now, it's a real exciting change for us. And like I say, really looking forward to that coming when it arrives. The next slide is just a little bit of an overview around considerations. So what we have on our website is the ability for any customer or any user of the internet to actually go and have a look at our roadmap. This is externally facing, but we also have something called an ideas hub for our customers to log into. What I've done at the bottom is I've shown a few features on the next 2 slides. I won't go into them verbatim wise, but it's some of the things that we are considering in addition to obviously the main strategy around the web enabled stuff. So first thing to mention to you, and again, if Ian would like me to put these links in to the chat, certainly not a problem. But again, if you go into Google and you sort of look for the Sage 200 roadmap, it's on there through my Sage. But what you'll see here is this is the future. So this is effectively what I've sort of read out to you on that slide. So again, if you want to go back and have a look, feel free. But also down here, we've got some other features that we're considering. So we're sort of asking, some of them are under active consideration. So we're asking you to take the survey around things you might want to see within Power BI. So some things are survey driven, some are Sage City driven, which is the Ideas Hub, which again, I'm going to come on to in a sec. So what we're currently in development with, but also what we're considering moving forward. So do some of these resonate with you as, yeah, we've asked that in the past, or we'd like that, or actually that's a good idea? Please vote for this in Sage City. So please go on, because we want to not only know what our customers and partners are asking us to do feature wise, but we also want you to vote and have a look at what other people are asking for, to see if it's something that you would benefit from, but maybe you haven't asked yourself. Okay. If I just move along, this is Sage City. You can get it from the opening dynamic page I showed you in Sage 200. You can also get it, if I go back to Sage 200, from the light bulb, if you've ever wondered what that is, for anyone who's on 2015 or above. Or like I say, we can share the links. But effectively, Sage City, you have to create a login to feedback and comment. But you'll see here, our very own Mr. Graham has added. So you can see here, we've got things that people are asking for across the Sage 200 family. Okay, so this is the Ideas Hub. This is the wish list. This is, I would like the product to do X, and also have a look at what other people are asking for as well. And like you say, there's some comments on there as well. Okay, so it could be about sharing information as well. But that's the idea. So, but like I say, we introduced that in 2015 as far as making it visible to the customer. We've always had a wish list at Sage across our products, and we've always recorded them, but we wanted it to be more accessible to the customer, to be able to have a look. Like I say, they're just simply what I was sort of scrolling down on that web page, but these are some of the things that are on that active consideration. But like I say, please go on and have a look, because it's really important to us to advance the product forward, to actually get feedback from our partners and customers around what are they actually looking for in currently in the product that maybe isn't there, and have a look at what other companies are asking for as well. And like I say, that's just simply there. So sagecity.com. Okay, how am I doing for time? That's about the 45 minutes. I normally rabbit on forever, but I managed to keep that to 45 minutes or so, which is impressed myself, if no one else. So yeah, more than happy to take any questions that someone or any one of you may have, or have been coming in around the product. Like I say, I can't go into too much detail from a knowledge point of view on the future, but I can certainly talk about anything around what's currently in play.
Thanks for that, Johnny. So any questions for anybody? It'd be really great to hear anything that anyone's got to ask. If you'd like to unmute yourselves and ask a question, or raise your hand.
I'll just start by making one comment. I mean, that's been great, Johnny. Thanks for the insight. I know that we at Solutions are involved with Sage on what are called advisory councils, and I believe Sage are looking for some customers to be involved in potentially feedback around what they want in the new version. So that's something that Joe Cook has asked me to investigate if we have any customers that are interested. So if you're interested in being involved in that, I can certainly let us know after the event. And we'll put your names forward. So as I say, I think there like to be sessions like this where Sage will bounce ideas off you and say, what do you think? Do you like the way this looks? And I say that they are keen to get some customers' feedback. So, if you're interested, please do let me know.
Thanks for that, Ian. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Please, if you want to be involved, like I say, reach out, please.
Chris, is that you trying to ask a question?
Yeah. What's the future with Power BI and Flow and everything else? What's the future of Sage workspaces?
Workspaces, well, the workspaces, because we'll go into web enabled, obviously in the web enabled world, I would expect, those workspaces will be removed and we will have the web enabled screens instead, because we won't necessarily need to surface, the workspaces in a browser anymore. There's no product will be in there.
Your workspaces, you'd have to transfer over into some kind of Power BI platform if you didn't want it presented exactly the same way you wanted it in the Sage standard forms.
Yes, Chris, I would surmise so. Like I say, I've not seen enough of development to know what the current workspaces would look like in the web enabled world, whether they're going to just leave them as they are but put them web enabled, or whether they're going to do something different. But yeah, if all else doesn't, is changed in it, then yes, potentially we'd have to wait and see what they look like.
Yeah, so presumably it's how long do you reckon workspaces will be around for?
I don't know, because I don't know when the next version. I don't know what the release date is for the next version for the web enabled product.
Right.
So they'll be around until that product comes out.
Right. Okay.
I mean, obviously, Chris, once everything's released formally and we get dates, you'll hear from us sort of via the usual channels and usual methods anyway.
Yeah, we won't release it quietly. We'll release it, like say, through our partners, and we want our customers to see it and get involved, because a lot of the feedback we're getting from customers and from our partners is that cloud's the way forward. We need to move away from a desktop application and move away from to putting Sage 200 on a server in the cloud. We need to move to, as the name suggests, a cloud, not only just cloud connected, but an actual cloud-based product. So, like I say, the web enabled stuff will tick that box. It's quite exciting. Hopefully, the screens give you an idea. I mean, the web-based forms, but you can see that we're getting on with it, as they say.
So, with our current on-premise install, you would envisage us being able to move that into an Azure platform?
Correct.
Less like an Azure VM type platform, so it's still kind of on-premise, but controlled via us through our Microsoft accounts.
Yeah, we have a we use Microsoft Azure. We have a standard product, which is a scaled down version of Sage 200, and we also have an extra online product, and they're using Azure currently. So we have the infrastructure to actually use Azure and provision them in Azure. So we will allow if a customer came to us, let's keep it simple, a customer came to buy it, had never had Sage 200 before and came to buy the web enabled, when it comes out, we would offer the customer data deployment. So we would say, look, how do you want to store your data? If you've already got a server and you want to deploy it in the cloud yourself and maintain that through the partner or through your IT company, that's great. If you want to use the Azure platform and have us put it in there for you, we could do that as well. So we're not only giving choice around the web enabled piece, but we're also giving choice around the data deployment of how that data is actually, configured and stored.
Right.
But like I say, you'll get a lot more information nearer the time.
Yeah.
Sure, Solutions will be delighted. Can't wait to tell you.
I think the other thing, Chris, it's also perhaps worth, again, having a conversation with Joe Kirkup, the product manager, around how you're using workspaces to make sure that Sage are aware of what you're worried about losing, I suppose, and making sure that is all transferred across into the new world as well.
Effectively, I mean, we're in the middle of this upgrade process. Cently's aware of it, and obviously with furlough, everything's kind of stopped. But one of the key things we want to use the workspaces for is for our budget holders. So at the moment, kind of budget holders get monthly reports with all their transactions and their commitments and actuals against their budgets on the transactions. And we want to kind of do away with all the paperwork and give them like a web-enabled front end. And that's what we were going to be using the workspaces for, in conjunction with the ability to stamp kind of budget hold and own the names against accounts. So that way somebody could log into Workspaces, and then we can, show them the accounts that they own, and then they can drill down into transaction level and show them various information on the Workspaces.
My understanding is that you're not going to lose functionality, you're going to gain functionality, but I think that's something we can talk to Joe directly about. Just ask the question to be sure. But that is my understanding of where Sage are going with this.
Right.
Certainly, Chris. I mean, I'm aware of what we've been talking about and you've been trying to do with the system. So we'll have a chat offline with the guys at Sage and just confirm details with them.
Okay. Yeah, Ian, are you okay picking that with Joe? Do you want me to liaise with Joe for you?
No, I can have a chat with Joe about that. Absolutely fine.
Have a chat with Joe.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
She'll be talking. I'll be catching up with her at some point around, general stuff anyway. So I'll mention it as well. So you'll be reaching out to her. But I made a note of that as well, Christopher, around the budget holder bit and what you're asking. So like Ian said, we'll maybe put some more meat on the bones for you.
I mean, it must be fairly common to kind of have budget holder kind of reporting. So, I mean, we can't be the only ones that want to do it. It must be fairly common for other large organisations.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the point where we need to see what Sage is planning. They're not just going to take away that functionality. They're enhancing the functionality, and you've got the web users or connected users, whatever they're called nowadays, where you can see that information through a workspace. Effectively, they're going to enable you to see a lot more information through the similar, different screens, but the same sort of principles. So, as I say, I think it's just going to be enhanced rather than taken away. But we'll take that away and say certainly it's got the details of exactly what you're looking to do, Chris. Joe, of course, much as I do, so we'll make sure between us we'll have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, another thing as well is we've got quite a few integrations, as Senti knows, with Spindle and Dracer products.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that hopefully when everything goes to cloud in a few years' time, then we'll have a migration path over for all our other kind of integrated products.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that that Dracer and etc. are working with Sage to ensure that there's a smooth transition. It's in everybody's interests. Obviously, because there's no release dates yet, I can't tell you exactly where they are in that process. But I'm sure that within a very short period of release, if not at release, compatibility with most of the major sort of ISV add-ons will still be an option.
Yeah.
Any further questions from anybody else? Okay, well, thank you, Johnny, for that useful insight. I think there's some really interesting information there. And thank you all for coming. If anybody does think of any questions, please don't hesitate to contact either myself or one of my colleagues. Over the next few weeks, if you look at the events page, you'll see there's some more Sage 200 based events designed to try and help you get the most out of your Sage 200 system. So please do sign up for them. So unless anybody else has got anything to add, thank you all for attending.
Thank
you very much, and thanks for everyone attending. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
We'll catch up later, Senti.
Cheers.